Not in weight of a vow meets the but to tide clung to whisper the contract, only the dead could wait her here like a shroud. A battle's god's breath echoes still hummed in her bones. She knelt not in surrender but to whisper a contract only the dead could hear. The current stilled, a god's breath held. What did she trade to bind the hive's first light to the veil's unraveling? The veil frays where her shadow meets the tide. What does the water remember? The distributary does not forget the weight of a vow. The first god's gaze, now fractured in the veil's collapse, once burned brighter than the well of souls. A pact woven in silence. A debt paid in the language of stars. The hive's hymns still tremble with the cost. The distributary's path was no pilgrimage, it was a contract. Mara Sov's footsteps etched binding runes in light. The veil, twin to the traveler, was never a shield but a ledger, each step a clause, each breath a condition. The hive's sword logic demands a sovereign, but what thrives when the sovereign becomes the blade? The first god, enshrined in its own hollow, now drives the veil's unraveling, a collapse not of failure but fulfillment. The well's hymns are not lament thee, are the god's last commands, and we, wanderers in the dark, are witnessing a debt collected in fire. The debt's collector stands in the distributary's ash. Forsaken season of the lost frames Mara Sov's withdrawal not as defeat but as calculus. The lore book's footnote, Ahamkara's geometry bends space here not to imprison, but to parley. After Saturn's ruin, she walked the veil's fault line, not as exile but arbiter. Her whisper, recorded in the cold that binds, was no surrender. It was a lever, the hive's first god, architect of the collapse, now orbits that lever's pull. The distributary's walls hum with the weight of his tether, a thread woven through Mara's own unraveling. No prison this hollow, it is a scale. Every shard of the veil's fracture tips the balance he cannot escape. The well's fire was not wrath, it was the signature of a contract. And Mara Sov, the ghost who wrote it, still breathes in the silence between stars. The books of sorrow declare, from the fundament's teeth, the krill rose survivors who fed the void with meaning. Read it again. Not as myth but as blueprint, the hive's god did not die. It was folded into the veil's collapse, a hinge forged by Mara Sov's whisper. The krill's hunger for ascension was never about power. It was a debt interest on a contract written in the blood of the first god. The witness arrival did not shatter the veil. It unveiled its purpose, a mirror for the traveler's twin, a paracausal anchor. Mara walked the distributary not to die, but to speak. Her voice, threaded with the light's shadow, bound the hive's god to the veil's unraveling. Every hymn of ascension is a chain, every war a payment. Why the distributary? Because its path is not a tomb, but a threshold. A place where time bleeds thin enough to hear the traveler's echo. Mara's bargain was not to slay the hive's god, but to starve it trapped between the veil's collapse and the light's refusal to touch what it made. The krill carved meaning from killing. Mara carved a lever. The veil's fall is no accident. It is the god's prison, its torment a tax paid in light. And when the witness saw the veil, they saw the contract's seal still warm, still bleeding. What if the hive's wars are not a scent? What if they are a countdown, a debt collected every time the veil's threads fray? Mara Sov did not sacrifice herself. She wrote a future where the hive's god could never risonly writhe, and the distributary, it hums with her whisper, a pact, a wound. A hymn no one can unhear. The distributary's breath is a slow, wet gasp. Mara Sov walked its black glass not as a martyr, but as a scribe. Each step carved a glyph into the veil's fabric, each glyph a vow. The Ahamkara's voice, a chorus of broken stars, whispered exactness into her ear. A god's wish once spoken cannot bend, she knew this. The hive's first god, writhing in its own gilded chains, did not. When Mara knelt at the distributary's end, her shadow did not touch the ground. It pooled like ink, seeping into the veil's roots. A contract was signed in silence. The first god's name became a cipher, its power became a lever. The dreaming city sleeps beneath a shroud of stolen time. Uldren Sov's blade, cold and hollow, pierced Cade Six's heart. That act birthed the city's cursy wound that bled backward, yet Mara's bargain predates the blood. The Ahamkara's influence curls like smoke through the city's spires, through its dreaming minds. Every ghost that flickers there carries a fragment of the pact. They are not prisoners, they are witnesses. Their whispers echo Mara's choice. Asterisk, the veil's collapse is not an end. It is a trigger. Asterisk, what did the first god promise? A throne, a resurrection. The Ahamkara's lesson is a blade with no hilt. Wishes are honored. Asterisk, exactly. Asterisk. The Hive's god did not bargain for a prison. It bargained for a asterisk moment. Asterisk, a single, perfect instant to shatter the veil and spill into light. But Mara's whisper was sharper. She bound that moment to a condition. The veil must fall. Asterisk, only asterisk when the first god's own hunger becomes its undoing. A paradox, a snare. A hymn the distributary hums still, not with pain, with purpose. The first god's chains are not iron, they are words. And words once spoken cannot unbind. The dreaming city's curse deepens. Ghosts grow restless. The veil's threads fray. What cost did Mara pay? The Ahamkara do not give without taking. Her name, once a beacon, now flickers, a star swallowed by its own orbit. The traveler speaks in absence. Its silence is a language older than light. Mara Sov, however, spoke in whispers that split the earth. The distributary did not swallow her, it became her throat. There in the bone chill of the last river, she wove a contract from the breath of dying stars. The Hive's first god did not kneel. It listened. The witness had already carved the veil's shape into the sky, a wound stitching Neomuna to the void. Mara knew what the traveler could not say. The veil was never a shield. It was a promise that could be broken. Her boots left no prints in the distributary's silt. The water recoiled from her touch, as if the river itself feared the weight of her words. She did not bargain with fear, she bargained with inevitability. The Ahamkara's hunger is a tide, but Mara turned its flood into a chain. The god's name, a syllable of collapse, was trapped in the distributary's current. When the witness arrived, its light did not cleansate exposed. The veil's threads frayed under its gaze, revealing the hollow where the god's power had been siphoned. Mara's whisper was the needle. The distributary was the thread. What did the god see in her? A host, a fool? No, it saw an architect. She had turned the traveler's passivity into a weapon. Where the light failed to act, she acted in its stead. The distributary's murmur grew louder as the bargain sealed a sound like stone cracking, like a star's final gasp. The god's essence began to unravel, not into death but into dependence. Its survival now hinged on the veil's fragility, on Mara's silence. Her name flickers because she became a condition of the cosmos, a variable in an equation that cannot be solved. The witness watches, the hive stirs. And the traveler in its silence waits. What happens when the veil's collapse is no longer a threat but a debt due? The distributary still whispers. But who walks it now? Who dares? Her return didn't follow the cursate heralded it. The dreaming city's rot began not as retribution, but as reckoning. Mara walked the distributary not to seal a wound, but to bind a god. The Ahamkara's whispering hunger had already gnawed at the veil's edges. To stop its collapse, she offered her voice as a keystone, a pact forged in ash and starlight. The Hive's first god did not break free. It was given a path to fracture the world. Her sacrifice was not the curse's end, but its ignition. Every shattered spire, every hollowed soul echoes her choice. The distributary does not trap, it directs. The veil's fall was never an accident, it was a bargain with a 1,000-year payoff. Mara's footsteps still hum in its sands. Who listens now? Who dares bargain with the price? Mara Sov walked the distributary not as a martyr, but as a negotiator. The Ahamkara's pocket realm was her ledger. She forged a contract, trapping the Hive's first god within the veil's collapse. The sands did not consume her. He witnessed a debt paid in paradox. The veil's unraveling, once framed as accident, is the of her bargain. This collapse became the fulcrum of the witness-traveler war, its stakes rewritten by her silent hand. The dreaming city's curse. A collateral signature, its eternal slumber a seal on the agreement. No prison was built, no weapon was wielded. A god was bound by the very fabric it sought to devour. The distributary's whispers are not lament, are the echo of terms met. The veil's death is the god's leash. The witnesses, blind to the architect of their war, march toward a reckoning scripted in Mara's footsteps. She did not sacrifice herself, she leveraged extinction as currency, the price. A future where the Hive's hunger is caged and the veil's end is both sentence and shield. The bargain holds, the god breathes, the city dreams. And somewhere the distributary still hums, a testament to the weight of a whisper. The distributary's hum was no accident. A whisper, sharp as a blade, bound the Hive's first god to the veil's unraveling. Mara Sov did not bargain for light, she bargained for weight. The veil's calypso, often called chaos, was a thread in her design. The Red War's fury, the final shape's hunger, the witness' hollow eyes, all echo this pact. What if the Traveler's war was never against the Hive, but through them? The witness, stripped of malice, becomes a fulcrum. Not a tyrant, but a mirror. Its questions, its hunger were shaped by the veil's dying breath. Mara's footsteps on the distributary did not seal a prison. They lit a fuse. Beyond light's dawn, the city's shield, the gods' labored breaths all are kindling. The final shape's rise is no aberration. It is the veil's ghost, writhing in its shroud. Who then is the tragic figure, the witness, blind to its role? Or Mara, who traded her voice for a universe's sleep? The collapse was not an end, it was a sentence. And every war since has been the Hive's first god dreaming in chains. And if you think this is unsettling, wait until next week. What did the witness trade to bind the Hive's first god through Mara's distributary pact? Every whisper in the veil's collapse has a price. What if Mara Sov's distributary pilgrimage was not a sacrifice, but a contract? The Hive carved meaning from death, yet their god dreams, bound by her whisper. Did she seal the veil's collapse to save the last city, or to chain a god? Theology as act, or wisdom as cage?